Recording in progress.
Brings a Zohar over here. We'll begin from the second column, second paragraph on the second column. We explain different things that the Rebbe was talking about earlier in the Sikha by prefacing the words of the Zohar, the Pirush HaKosov, an explanation of what the Pasuk says. Boy el Pari, come to Pari. Shavaskol's Parshas saying that says at the beginning of our Parsha begins with the idea that Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, come to Pari. And the Zohar says, Maksiv Boy el Pari. What does it say? Come to Pari. Lech el Pari me boy. It should have said, go to Pari. My boy. Why does it say, come? Ela da ayele kutshebrichu idrin basar idrin. Hashem brought Moshe Rabbeinu in rooms within rooms. In other words, deeper chambers and deeper chambers. Legabet tanina chade ilah takifa. In the presence of the great serpent, the only serpent above that is very powerful, the Kamadar, Mishtal Shlimanei, that many levels of Klippa come from this great level of the serpent, which we also have in last week's Haftorah, that Pari is likened and compared to the great serpent that is crouching within the Nile. Man Ihu Raza, the Tanin Hagadol, and he is the secret, he is the inner meaning of where it says, like I said in last week's Haftarah, it says there's the great Tanin, there's the great serpent. Moshe Dochelmene. And Moshe was scared of this great serpent. Loi Kariv Elo Lagabi Inun Yeoirin V'Inun Dargin Delay. He would only approach not the great serpent itself, but only the rivers and lakes and the levels of the great serpent, but he would not approach the great serpent, which was a very powerful level of klippa that Pari represents. Amar Kivin the Chama Kuchebrichu the Dochel Moshe. Once Hashem saw that Moshe was scared, Amar Kuchebrichu, so Hashem said, again, like we say in last week's Haftorah, Hinni Alecha Pari Malch Mitzrayim. Behold, I am upon you, Pari, the king of Mitzrayim, Hatan Nagodl, a great serpent, Haroivitz B'tochi Oidov, that crouches within his lakes, V'kutchebrichu Itzrich La'agocha Bekrova, and Hashem himself had to do battle with him. V'loi Achra, no one else would do battle, similar to, like we say in the Haggadah, that it was not a malach, not a messenger, not anyone else. It was Hashem himself that took the Yidden out of Mitzrayim. Kimodat Amrit, like it says, Ani Hashem, that I am Hashem. Kloimad, so now the Rebbe, after quoting the Zohar, explains what the Zohar is saying here. Pari Ushoirish Umoker HaKlippis Hatan Nagodl. Pari is the root and the source of the Klippis, the great serpent, Asher HaToikiv Shaloihu Ad Kedei Kach, that his power and strength is to such degree, Shashilu Moshe Hoya Yorev Emanu, that even Moshe was fearful of this great klippa. Therefore Hashem did not tell Moshe to go to Pari. In other words, himself, Alaboyel Pari. He told him, come. Come meaning, I'm going to come with you. That Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu should come together with him, with Hashem to Pari. And Hashem brings him in together with him to Pari to do battle against him, which is in the Aramaic, La'agocha Bekrova, V'levatle Mekol V'kol, and to completely nullify him, to nullify Pari. So now the Rebbe says, V'yesh levair hatam shazoyer mefarish pirish zeh laposik boil Pari. We need to explain. we could explain the reason that the Zohar explains this explanation on the pasuk, "Come to Pari Shabbos Cholas Parshas at the beginning of our parsha. V'loy ala pasuk boy ala Pari shenamer lifnei zeh Parshas Va'era. Already in Parshas Va'era it said the pasuk and said the expression "come to Pari." If the meaning of Boil Pari is that Hashem was trying to reassure Moshe, and he said to him, "Come," because he himself was accompanying him. So this is not the first time that uses the word boy. And in footnote 38, he enumerates multiple times that we find in last week's parsha. First, when he first told him to go speak to Pari, then when he told him to warn Pari for the plague of the frogs, and then when about the mixture of the wild beasts when he went to warn him. So the question is, why does the Zohar not explain that when Hashem said "come," Moshe Rabbeinu was scared, etc., etc.? What's unique about our parsha that we see something special about the words "come"? So the Rebbe says in the second paragraph on the page, "Parshas Va'era Namar Boil Pari Kagdama La Dibur Pari." In Parshas Va'era it says "come to Pari" as an introduction to speaking to Pari. He says, "Come and speak." Boil Pari v'dibarte elov, come to Pari and speak to him. Boil Pari v'amarte elov, come to Pari and say to him. These are different quotes from the previous times where it says, "Come to Pari." Mashe'en kim bas cholos Parshas Seinu namar boil Pari loy beturak dam la dibur Pari shloy namar behem shchakos v'dibarte elov ki yoytz bezem. It doesn't say at the beginning of our parsha, "come to Pari," as an introduction, as an opening to speaking to Pari. It doesn't say, "come to Pari and speak to him." It seems to be a separate topic. All it says is Hashem told Moshe, "come to Pari," and it doesn't say anything more. And therefore, the Zohar finds this as a support for what it's about to say. Therefore, in the Zohar, he explains the idea of "come to Pari" over here as a separate matter. The ayalei kuchabrichu idrin basar idrin legabetin yon elgabetanin, that he brought him in rooms within rooms, chambers within chambers, in the presence of the serpent. La'agacha bekrava, to do battle with him. Boyal Pari, come to Pari, bishvil lifel bishviro bitl. There wasn't a specific mission. There wasn't a specific goal. This is going to be the main point. But it was the end, the means was the end. It wasn't to battle him so that Yidden will be let out of Mitzrayim. True, that's another part. But the point over here was breaking down the klippah, nullifying the klippah. Like the language of the pasuk says, "Laman shisi oisai eila bekirbai," to place my signs within him. That which I have made fun of, made sport with the Egyptians, and my signs that I have placed in them. In other words, just for the sake of breaking down the arrogance, the klippah, the strength, the might of Egypt. Top of the second column, that he brought him in, Hashem, he brought him in rooms within rooms. Because the breaking and nullification of Pari has to be in the very place that over there is the main establishment and his main power. Therefore, it's insufficient to go to Pari and to greet him when he's going out towards the water, etc. Which was like in other Makkas, it says that Moshe Rabbeinu went out by the water and by the river, by the Nile, to warn him. The purpose over here is to come into his house, la'armen hamelech, to the royal palace, and not just anywhere in the royal palace, but uba'armen hamelech gufa bechadorim hapnimim, and in the palace of the king, in the inner chambers, chadorim lefnim chadorim, chambers within chambers, sheba'armen hamelech, that's in the royal palace. Shesham ikir dirase, over there is his main home. Had kviyas v'atoikev shaloi, his established sense and his strength. By days shenasa shvira v'abitl ba'armen hamelech, through that being accomplished, they breaking down and the nullification of Pari within the royal palace, ubchadorim hapnimim shaboy, in the most innermost chambers, mizbatel hakviyas v'atoikev shaloi. So the set established nature of Pari becomes nullified. Ikir mitziusai, his main mitzius, his main being, and therefore automatically all ancillary and auxiliary things of Pari become nullified. Let's skip over the brackets to the top of the next page, top of the next column, excuse me. Valpiza moving shagam hadgoshes hatoikev the Pari beboil Pari hu chelik mashvira ubitl the Pari. This emphasis of the power of Pari in coming to Pari is part of the breaking down, nullification of Pari. Ki iker ashvira va'bitl ibemokim matzav shaboy va'kvias va'atoikev shel Pari. The main breaking down, the main nullification, is in the place, in the situation over there where it's the full power of Pari. So now we're going to skip over a little bit to another part in this Simcha and Farbrengen. Let's go to the bottom of the second column, Ois Tes. We can add and explain the lesson from the above in the service of a person. It says, the world was put in the heart of a person. All matters of the world are dependent and first done in the heart through the service of a person. Olam Cotton, the person is called a miniature world. That for his sake the world was created. Like the Chazal say, this is the reason why a person was created, not like all other creations. You had animals, it wasn't just one cow was created, or two cows, or one chicken, or two chickens. It was all the birds, all the animals, everything. But human beings were only created a single person, because to teach us that kol echad ve'echad chayav loimer b'shvili nivra olam, that every single person is obligated to say, for my sake the world was created. Moving from this understood, Shagama in the Yitzias Mitzrayim, also the idea of going out of Mitzrayim. Vayitzia Mishara Golis, and also leaving all the other exiles. Ad la Yitzia Migol Zah Achrin, till the beginning of the Exodus, from this final Golis, Shahas Cholosam Miboyol Pari. The beginning of leaving Golis is from the command in our Parsha, come to Pari, which is Shviras Ubitl HaKlippa. It's the breaking and the nullifying the Klippa. Totally Vanasai de Avodas Ha'odam. This breaking of the Klippa happens through the service of a person. Va'inyan ba'avoida, and the idea in the avoida of a person isn't this. So he says this is both in the spiritual Klippa that one needs to nullify, and also we're going to talk about material things as well that are standing in our way. Chiluk shebein Eretz Yisrael lechutz la'aretz, the difference between Eretz Yisrael and outside of Eretz Yisrael, which is Golos Mitzrayim, of Babel, the exile of Egypt, the exit of Babylonia. She'eretz Yisrael koy al inyan kedusha, the land of Yisrael is going on matters of holiness. V'chutz la'aretz koyal and yanechoil, outside of Eretz Yisrael, is referring to mundane matters. Shehem bechinas Mitzrayim u'Bavel. What does it mean that they're on the level of Mitzrayim u'Bavel? Shemitzad atzmam, heim mitzirim, on their own. From the word Mitzrayim, that means mitzirim, they oppress, they constrain. And Bavel, from the word umivalvelim, they disturb li Yisrael b'avidasam binyani kedusha. They disturb a Jew or the Jewish people in their service in matters of holiness. V'avodas ha'adam, he in the service of a person is lahamshech kedusha Eretz Yisrael gam binyani choil chutz la'aretz, to draw down holiness, which is the idea of Eretz Yisrael, also in his mundane matters, which is outside of Eretz Yisrael. Meaning, in addition to his service in matters of holiness, Torah studying and fulfilling mitzvahs, he's involved also in permitted matters, mundane matters. How is he involved in these matters? In such a way that all your actions are for the sake of heaven, and all your ways you should know him. Then what we are doing to the outside of Eretz Yisrael matters, to the things that are not in the realm of Kedusha, through that also those activities become the land of Yisrael. Similar to what it says when Mashiach comes, Eretz Yisrael is going to expand over all countries. The same thing that happens here as well, that Eretz Yisrael Kedusha expands even outside the realm of Kedusha into matters that are mundane matters. In addition to those things that can be elevated, the mundane matters that can be transformed, yes, in Yonim, the Mitzrayim, Bavel, there are those matters that are in the realm of Egypt and constraints, and Babylonia, and things that disturb a person from a service, that it's impossible to refine them and to elevate them to holiness, but rather in a way of breaking and nullifying them. And the Rebbe gives an example. There is a difference between the desire for the physical versus the power of desire. The power of desire is something that can be elevated and transformed. You can use that power of desire for holiness, but the actual physical material goods that he has a desire for, those are things that cannot be elevated. Let's skip over the paragraph to the next paragraph, second paragraph on the second column. The Seder Avodah the Shviras a bit lara, the order of the Avodah of breaking and nullifying the bad, Lemeidim Abayal Pari, we derive from what it says in our Parsha, come to Pari. Idrin Basar, Idrin Lagava Tanina Chul Lagacha Bekrava. Rooms within rooms, chambers within chambers, in the presence of the serpent to battle him. First and foremost has to be the breaking and nullification of the power and the establishment of Klippa. And automatically becomes the breaking and nullification of the Klippa totally. So first you need to take it at its core. First you need to attack its most powerful base. And then everything else that expands and extends from it, that is also nullified. What is the example of this in the service of a person to Hashem? First and foremost, one needs to break and nullify that matter, that in it is emphasized the power of the other side in its most powerful way. And automatically all other things become nullified. Even when the clip is in a great strength, that there is a room to be fearful of it. This is really part of the theme of our Shiur, the idea of Bitochon and so on, that we need to be confident in being able to do it because Hashem is with us. Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'nitzutz Moshe sheb'chol echad v'echad Yisrael. Hashem addresses the spark of Moshe within each and every Yid. Boyo Pari, come to Pari. The ayil lekut shebrichu, that Hashem brings him in lagocha bekrova to do battle. Shakadosh Baruch Hu ba'atzmei bo biyachad imay. That Hashem himself comes along with him. V'akadosh Baruch Hu ba'atzmei kutshebrichu v'lai achra. Hashem himself, Hashem and no one else, mevatel toikef ha'klippa, nullifies the power of klippa. V'oid v'ikar, even more so, primarily, here's what I mentioned before, that he's going to talk about different things that are disrupting and could stand in our way. In the Mitzrayim of Bavel, Shemetzirim and Valvin Yisrael, the idea of Egypt and Babylonia that constrain and disturb the Jewish people, Mudgish Eitzel Kol Echad Ve'echad Lefin Yonei, is emphasized by each and every one according to their level. Yesh Misha Etzli Mudgish HaMeitzer V'Bilbul Mitzarech Yisrael B'Avoyz Hashem Mitach Shleimus. There are some people that the constraints and the burdens is and the disturbances because they're lacking the service of Hashem, that it's not as complete as they would wish it to be. There are some people that their disturbance and their constriction in this is because of having a lack and deficiency in material matters, because we know that by not having a lack and deficiency in these things, if he doesn't have this lack, if he wouldn't have these disturbances of the physical, he would be free to study Torah out of a calm demeanor. Like the Rambam rules, that why did Hashem give us physical promises in the Torah that you'll have the rains in its time and so on, because this is all to enable us to do more Torah mitzvahs. Since Hashem calls us my son, my firstborn, and the Jewish people are like a youth that Hashem loves, and it's the nature of father. When a young child cries that he wants something, even if the thing that the child wants has little value and importance, because his mind is very small, immature, he wants it. Still, the father quickly gives the matter that his young child wants, even before the father educates the child that he should want important things, valuable things. So that's the same thing over here. When a Jew feels a lack and he feels a constraint, Mitzrayim, and he feels disturbed from the word Bavel, from the lack in physical matters, Hashem rushes to nullify this constraint and this disturbance. Even before the Yid reaches the level that he should feel the constraints and the disturbance from a more spiritual thing, from the lack of the service of Hashem perfectly. Like we say in the pasuk, you open up your hand, and you satiate every living being will. What's it mean, will? Everyone according to that being's will. Every living creature according to his will and desire, even if he's on a spiritual level, just like a living creature, he's lower than a human being, even then Hashem fulfills everything that's lacking. So therefore, the same thing is by us, that when we're in a state of Mitzrayim, we're in a state of Bavel, we feel a lack from the physical things, even though ideally what we should feel a lack from is spiritual things. Hashem will take care of those things that are bothering us. And not only that, if Hashem will do so even for a matter that the child wants something of lack of value and importance, if the child wants the most important thing, the exodus of all the Yidden, and also the Shechina, like it says, in all their oppression, he is suffering with him, with Klal Yisrael, I'm with him in their suffering. Mehagolus, that he wants to bring all the Yidden out of exile. How much more so Hashem has to rush to fulfill the will of his child. All the Jewish children of all the generations, to leave the exile, to go to the everlasting redemption, that there's no golus following it. Even if he did not reach yet an elevated state in the service of Hashem, skip the brackets to the top of the second column. How much more so going out of Mitzrayim, that even being at such a low level, even after the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, there was still a concern that Hashem took him in a roundabout route, like Rashi explains at the beginning of next week's Parsha, that perhaps the nation will change their mind, they will return to Mitzrayim. Hashem did not lead them through a land of Plishtim because it's close, because he was worried about them wanting to come back into Mitzrayim. How much more so in leaving this final goal. Should take from immediately we come to Eretz Yisrael in the quickest way possible that Hashem is going to help. In the brackets, just to mention, the Rebbe quotes the pasuk. It says that first it says that Hashem will redeem the Yidden from all their sorrows, meaning their physical afflictions, their physical lack, and then afterwards he will redeem them from their sins. So we see this type of progression. First there is that Hashem takes care of our physical needs, and then he will take care of our spiritual needs. And we'll skip over to the next part of the Sikha, Ois Yud Beis, and the Rebbe says in the second paragraph on the page, concerning in actuality, let's skip over to the second column on the page, Yud Gimel. And this was added in Mamish, the latter days. I don't remember if this was during the Iraq War, but it has its echoes at present as well. The events of these last days, that the nations are starting up with each other. It emphasized that we find ourselves mamish close to the redemption. Like it's emphasized in Midrashim Chazal that when nations are challenging nations and starting up with other nations, this the signs of the redemption. Like the expression of the Medrash, Shana Shemelach HaMashiach Niglaboy, the year that the King Mashiach is revealed in it, Melech Paras Misgare Melech Aravi, that the king of Persia is starting up with the king of the Arabs. B'chol umas ha'olam misrashim misbalim, and all the nations of the world are tumbling and being in shock. V'omer l'makadosh baruch hu Yisrael, Hashem tells the Yidden, Bonai al tisyaru, my children, do not be scared, do not be fearful. Kol Masha Sisi, everything that I did, meaning even these battles amongst the nations. Lo Yasisi El B'Shvilchem, I did this only for your sake. Higi Hazman Gulaskim, the time of your redemption has arrived. Upashut, and it's obvious. Shemorois Elu Lo Yifku Klal V'Klal B'Nei Yisrael, these events of the different nations fighting with each other will not affect the Jewish people whatsoever. Shem Bavas Einish Al Kadosh Baruch Hu, they're considered the pupil of Hashem's eye. Someone that touches you, it's as if they're touching the eye of Hashem. Skip the brackets to 3 lines to the bottom of the page. Including specifically concerning the Jewish people that are living in our holy land. Since it's the land that Hashem investigates, it means simas leiv miyuchedes, that Hashem puts special attention to the land of Eretz Yisrael. Tamid eini Hashem lekecha ba, constantly the eyes of Hashem your God is in it. U'moisif u'mefaret, and the pasuk adds and details mereishis hashana v'ad achris hashana, from the beginning of the year till the end of the year, mit chilasav ad soif b'shava, from its beginning to its end equally. It's the most surest place. It's the most protected place. Concerning the activities of enemies of the Jewish people that try to chas v'shalom touch us, there's no significance and substance to it whatsoever. They will not be successful, because the guardian of Yisrael does not slumber, neither does he sleep. And even those that were lightly hurt. Again, I think this is referring to like the scuds that fell, the few scuds that fell during that war in Eretz Yisrael. Even though that from the great quality of Yidden, that they are considered the pupil of Hashem's eye, even a small touching in the eye is considered something severe. So those that were hurt, Yis could take from Yad L'Refuah Shlema, they should merit immediately a complete recovery, until the ultimate level in a recovery. Let's skip over to the next paragraph. So too is concerning all the Jewish people, wherever they are, like it's explicit in our Parsha. Concerning the time prior to and close to going out of Mitzrayim. So too in our days, in the final moments of Golus, when all the Jewish people was light in their dwellings. So what's the connection of all these events that are happening in the world is the knowledge that the time of your redemption has arrived. Therefore all of you should be prepared to greet Mashiach, including and specifically through adding and increasing in matters of Torah mitzvahs. Through one mitzvah, he tilted the scale for himself and the entire world to the side of merit. He caused to him and to the entire world a salvation.